What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Orion Training Group YouTube channel. Today I'm going to piss off the entire internet by talking about stuff. Stuff is everyone's favorite. We don't need to talk about fitness, mindset, case law, just stuff. So I have a lot of the things that I own here for you. I'm wearing the most controversial top I could find in my closet. I even have a bayonet on my hip, despite not having anything that will fit on, because it is a Mauser bayonet from Spain in the 50s. In a custom multi-cam sheath. The point I'm making is that all this stuff can be used for different things and in different ways. It can be used in combination, but there are some distinctions amongst what kit is good for certain tasks. For the specific video we're making today, we're going to talk about a rifleman and the rifleman's kit, and direct action and direct action kit. Now let's define that. Instead of saying infantry, because that has very specific connotations, I'm going to say rifleman. Infantry means guys in the military working as a unit that have supporting things like the ability to call for fire, rockets, mortars, grenades, squad-based weapon systems, all kinds of stuff that the average person doesn't have access to, which is a bummer because the Constitution, the way it's worded, you would think we could have that. But the generations before us stopped that. So thank you, boomers. No rockets for me. But rifleman fits the description of what we can have. We have rifles, and we have all the other supporting equipment. Direct action is one of those things that the terminology gets thrown around a lot, and you think of, specialized units. Guys that are in the infantry or a rifleman can do direct action. It just means that you have a specific task at that target that you're going to specialize your training and your equipment around, and you're going to take that direct action on target. For the purpose of the topics today, we'll talk about riflemen, we'll talk about direct action, what the differences are, and then at the end of the video we'll kind of mesh them and show how it can be scalable. So bear with me, there'll be a lot of talking, but we're going to film some cool stuff for y'all to see. So for the rifleman, just looking at what I have laid out right here, the main thing that should stick out to you is the giant pack. Now I know you're going to ask me, like, who makes that pack? Kind of like we're always like, who makes those pants on Instagram? This is just a placeholder. I've tried out a few different really expensive packs. I'm honestly not sure what I want. This is like the $80 Chinesium special on Amazon. And it's been great for camping and stuff that I've been doing, but I'm not saying that you should take this and go use it, in a war zone somewhere where your life really depends on these straps making it or the buckles not breaking or whatever else. Don't cheap out on gear you're actually going to use, when you're opposed. But for camping and stuff like that, it's great. It's around 50 liters. That's the typical, that's as big as you want to go typically for a ruck. If you get bigger than that, you're going to overpack it. If you want a video on just packing rocks, look at our video from Blake Flannery. Of course, I ran this video by him. I was like, hey, bro, I'm about to piss a lot of people off. They can't read or hear. And he was like, well, it is what it is. It's the internet. People can refer to other videos, because this video is going to generate a lot of questions. Go look at Blake's video about rucking and packing a ruck if that's what you're interested in. Another thing that should stick out as a different item to you on this side of the table is the chest rig. Now, what's on the chest rig? Well, you've got 8 magazines, a radio, smokes, a liter of water, an IFAK, and then an admin pouch with a zipper. You can't really see from this angle. You'll see it in a bit. And then also another dangler, which I can stuff with more IFAK items, or in this case, it's got candy in caffeine pouches and a tourniquet. So 8 mags, radio, IFAK, water, admin stuff, smoke grenade. You'll see in a bit how that is a little different from what I'm carrying on the direct action kit. Something else that may jump out at you is that I'm using a carrier for my plates that is separate from what is hosting all of my ammo and other supplies. and I'll use the term host a lot. So the host for my plates, disconnected for the host from all my supplies that I would need for immediately in a firefight. And obviously a rifle is going to be used in both of these kits. Something else that I might only use in this context is scrim, and that goes for not only the pack but also the helmet. And for the videos later, you'll just see the scrim on the helmet. But there are camouflage bags, there are scrim packs you can buy for helmets and bags. This is something that I put together from Cabela's camouflage netting that you get for a hunting blind. It is, I'm not going to say it's berry compliant, but it doesn't glow under IR, and it's got a brown and a green side. So you can break some pieces, twist it around, veg. You know, obviously you want to upgrade with the veg that's in your area when you're doing something, as long as you're following the rules of camouflaging. This is a great way because it's a little darker, more neutral colors, and you can upgrade it with whatever's in your area. It rips really easy so that it's not going to get snagged on twigs and stuff like that, and yank your helmet off. So scrim is something that you'll see people associate a lot with infantry tasks. It's not that you can't wear it for direct action. That's going to be a mission thing. And we'll talk about that in a bit. A helmet. Definitely something that a rifleman or someone in the infantry wears or needs. Now in this case, this helmet is one helmet for both videos, or both portions of the video. This helmet hosts a task light, a vertical umbrella light. It hosts IR and Viz signaling for indicators of friend or foe. And it also hosts my ear pro. A lot of guys will run helmets that are separate hosts from that stuff so that they can scale up and down. So if you're the guy that wears the helmet with the soft band comms so you can run your comms without your helmet, that's smart, it's scalable, nothing wrong with that. It's just that this is the one helmet I'm using for both parts of the video. I didn't want to bring the other one and the other ears and all that other crap. Honestly, probably wouldn't fit on the table anyway. Another thing that may be used both by like a line unit guy or just a rifleman and someone doing a specialized entry mission is a gas mask. I have here is the Avon FM53. This is a SOCOM issue mask. This is basically the peak or the pinnacle, but they actually now have a new version of it, the FM54, which has some slight differences. Those are not available to buy as civilians, but you'll see a lot of law enforcement and military using them. You can get them on the gray market sometimes. But what Avon does have for civilians is the C50, and it basically has all the same protective features, same profile, lenses, and all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't host a bunch of the electronic stuff like the voice box and all the connections for PTTs and things like that. And that makes sense because they can sell that mask for $350 instead of $1,700 with a bunch of stuff on it that you don't need, if we want to go there and use that phrase. Another thing that both direct action and riflemen or infantry guys might use is night vision. Now you'll see a lot of guys use just a handheld PVS-14, you know, a single tube on a Rhino mount or something like that, just because it's mostly for getting from point A to point B without making a bunch of noise. In this case, I have some brand new duals from Lowlight Innovations. Bought them from GP Armory, good guys over there. And these are basically the best spec L3s that you can get as far as the tubes in the body. And of course I got them in Multicam Tropic because that's God's camouflage. Now but it's replaced M81 as its status. But this is something that is just a force multiplier. If you can see in the dark and the other guy can't, you're probably going to win the fight that happens in the dark. In the modern era, a lot of people have night vision. The average civilian rifleman who's trying to build up his kit sees this as sort of a pinnacle item and something they kind of have to be, you know, hip and fitting in. People are going into debt even to buy these things. You don't have to have this, but it definitely gives you an obvious advantage at night if you have it and the other guy doesn't. The point I'm making is if everyone has it, we have to be cognizant of that and tailor our mission and our actions to it. For example, I'm not using the IR friend or foe indicator that's going to blink on my helmet if the bad guy has IR capabilities. You've probably all heard the story at some point or another of the dudes who were maneuvering to a target overseas during the War on Terror, and the bad guys had IR cameras and old gen IR tubes, and they were using PKMs and placing accurate fire on guys 500-600 meters out as they were maneuvering to a target to conduct their direct action mission. So those guys had to rip off their IR strobes and toss them away. So as warfare continues to evolve, I know that in Fallout they say war never changes, but technology does. So as it evolves, maybe we have to adapt a little bit and understand the limitations of everyone having night vision is just as bad as no one having it. So thinking about that, what are some differences in the direct action equipment itself? Again, we're not talking about the mission per se right now. Well, you probably notice some breaching equipment. That's not that you're not going to have that on a line unit as an infantry guy or a rifleman. That's not what I'm saying. But it is an essential requirement for entering a structure, especially if the other team knows you're coming. They will likely have fortified the structure, and that goes back to the first sieges when we were fighting folks in caves because we wanted, you know, unga bunga, I need to spread the species or whatever. Breaching is a thing, and it's an essential skill set, and it should be trained and treated as much of the specialty as snipers are. It's technical. You can see here I have two different entry tools just to show you. I have a sledge, short haft, I believe that's an 8-pound, and then I have a breaching shotgun or my ballistic solution. What I don't have with me is the explosive breaching stuff, the firing device, the caps, the lead lines, all those other things. That's the kind of capability that you scale up to, obviously. And even a lot of direct action teams in the U.S. don't even have that, even though they're tasked with hostage rescue. You'll have small police departments that if somebody gets taken hostage, they got their 12 or 13 dudes who are ready to rock and roll, but they don't have explosives. You got military teams where every dude on the direct action entry has a couple interior door charges at least, if not some fruit roll-ups, some foam linears, and all these other things. So as an explosive breacher myself, I would consider that pretty essential, but not everybody has that, so it is what it is. Some other things you might notice, now I'm being cheeky and I'm wearing a gun belt, right, with a hip holster setup like I'm about to colonize Africa or something, which is actually a good reference because this is French Lizard camo was used there. But you see a dedicated gun belt, and what does that gun belt host for me? Well, it's got the pistol, it's got extra magazines for the rifle and the pistol, it's got admin, it's got marking for room marking, entry and exit marking, deconfliction with the chem lights. It's got a retention strap for my shotgun. It has extra tourniquets. So that's all stuff that if I was going to run it without a belt, I need to put somewhere in my kit as a rifleman or on a line unit, or I need to put it in my myriad of pockets, which is certainly a thing that you could do. The reason that you'll see these kind of belts run on these type of kits is that you're not making entry into the structure with this giant pack on. So you're able to run that belt without your hip belt on your pack. Now, a caveat to that, you can find thousands of images on the internet of guys in GWOT running a belt as an infantry guy and then just not running the hip belt on their ruck. And after talking to a bunch of those guys on the internet, the reason that belts became so popular for them, even though they also had a hip belt to run, is they really couldn't carry everything that they needed in their pockets, especially if they got into some shit. So things like frags, things like smokes, flashbangs, extra med, extra ammo, dudes were still running belts for that, but they just weren't running pistols. Then you have, kind of like with the British or a lot of foreign militaries, they'll run a belt kit, and it's everything you see on that chest rig, but it's on your belt, spread from your small of your back to your sides, and they leave the whole front slick for going prone easier and things like that. A buddy of mine, Viking Reconnaissance, he loves running belt kits. As an Army recon guy and a sniper, that's better for him. So this is just an example of the roles that we're talking about here and the stuff that I have to demo it. This is not the end-all be-all. It's not the only way to make a rifleman's kit. It's not the only way to make a direct action kit. Something else that's different, obviously we both have comms on both of these, but the type of stuff that I have accessible hosted on my plate carrier is a little different. I have a drag strap on here, I have flex cuffs, I have steel cuffs, If you're making entry into a building, not everyone is going to be a shoot target, but everyone needs to be at least stopped and detained. Some people you're not going to have to zip tie or cuff, but a lot of people you are. So, you know, half a dozen cuffs is not a bad thing. You need to have both metal and plastic. We won't get into the why behind that, but that is real stuff. I have a drag handle installed. The likelihood of getting shot doing CQB and entry on direct action stuff is really high. So planning for the evac, having all the medical you need on you is really important, having that easily accessible. The PTT that's wired on this one is wired in a specific way. If I need to access it with either hand, it's center mounted. It's not on my shoulders, so it's not in the way of mounting my rifle into either shoulder pocket. And also the way I have mine angled, if I need to, I can stick my chin out and key up onto the mic with the bottom of a mask. If you don't set that up right, you're going to accidentally key up with your mask a lot, and it's really annoying, so there's some nuance to that. Also here, like I said, I have my explosive breaching set up, but I'm not running that right now. The firing device would go into the chest flap here. The dope flap is what Faro Concepts calls it. And then the lead line is coiled up and stored off to the side in an elastic pouch, with the caps being centered over the plate in an admin pouch. When it would come time to pop that charge, I can plug that in to the actual charge itself. Now it's very much live. Unspool that lead line, get to where we need to be, and set off the firing device, and it's a very quick system. Not something you see set up on this, because if you're not even around buildings or going into buildings, it's a waste of space. So you can see that some of the direct action kit's equipment and where it's placed, how it's stored, is about the specialty of the mission. And on a rifleman's kit, it's about the general purpose nature of the mission. We've got plates that we can scale up or down. If I need to maybe do some sort of quick movement or like a light reconnaissance part of the mission, I can take the plates off and just run a rifle and a chest rig. If we're on a patrol in occupied territory or whatever else, and I really want those plates and helmet, then I can scale up to that, put all that on. I'm going to have this carrier under my clothes in a minute. You probably won't even be able to see it. And I'll have this pack on. So what's in the pack that isn't in this? And this is really, in my opinion, the major difference other than the specialty equipment that you need for breaching and all that kind of stuff, the pistol belt. This is going to carry sleeping stuff. If you're in a cold area and you need some specially sleeping equipment. Now, if you're like Blake and you're just a big Viking and you don't care, he sleeps in his clothes and his boots. He may have a water barrier to separate him from the ground, depending on where he's at. I have a bivy, which basically separates me from the environment if I can help it. A roll-out foam pad and a light blanket. It doesn't get that cold where I am, and if I'm going somewhere that it is going to be cold, I can always scale up the type of materials for the thermal layering stuff. Rain poncho, minimum of 4 liters of water, water filtration system, food, other layers, socks, other ammo, communication equipment, all that kind of stuff is all in there. And the reason that's in there is the intent of this equipment is to be out in the field for a while. The intent of this equipment is not. Now, you can go from this to that, and that would be putting on a pistol belt, dumping the pack, equipping that night vision, all that kind of thing. So the reason the night vision, I'm not going to just run around in the woods with that clipped on, is because if we're not entering a structure or a space where the lighting can be controlled by the other party involved, then it's basically just is the sun up or down, and I'm not going to run around with the nods on my head all day if the sun's out. If I'm going into a structure, one at night, or it's dusk, or we're going into a building without power, if I can avoid showing everyone where I am with my white light and I have night vision and the other guy doesn't, I'll just run those tubes and we can use white light bypass if we need to. If you don't know what that is, tons of videos out there about it. Just give it a quick Google. It's basically the ability to scale between running your nods, looking right under them, and going to white light without having to change anything on your kit. And again, that's a very direct action thing. You're probably not going to run into that as a rifleman walking around in the woods or in open space. That's another thing about the rifle. I have my shorty gun here. It's got a white light, a laser, and a red dot. I have a short mag in it. I just like the short mag. It's aesthetic. It's not for any reason other than that right now. There's a lot of stuff on this rifle that you don't necessarily have to have or need for rifleman type stuff. Even the suppressor, don't have to have that necessarily. It's a really good thing to have inside a house shooting with your buddies, especially for friend or foe identification. But a 16-inch gun, a good white light with a cap over it so you don't ND it out in the woods, and some kind of variable optic is what I would suggest, especially if you're shooting out past 500 yards. A 1x8 with an offset red dot, and you've got all the capabilities you need for up close and far away. With this kit, you're not going to do very well for very long out in the woods. If I went on a patrol with all of this on, I got a bunch of crap I don't need, like a hammer and a shotgun. I don't have any water, food. There's a lot of differences. The only thing that I didn't talk about so far is the medical kit for direct action stuff. And honestly, at any point in time, I really like fanny packs. I use fanny packs for low vis, for the SWAT raid or whatever you want to call it, and I'll even put that thing in this pack when I'm doing the rifleman stuff or the SUT classes with Blake, because it's a perfectly packed IFAK that is usable in any of these kits. So what do they both have? Armor, plates, radios, flashbang grenades, whatever you want to call it, distraction devices, smoke, the rifle itself, a pistol if I want to scale to that, because I can throw all this on and leave this pistol on. What do they do differently? It may be, of course they'll both have gas masks, night vision, and a helmet, but what will we be doing differently with them? A lot of the breaching specialty stuff, a lot of the sustainment specialty stuff, and that's really all that separates the two. So we're going to show you what they all look like all together, and then we'll do a little bit of a video on how you can sort of scale between the two. So this is what all of the rifleman kit looks like together. Now, what are some obvious issues if I was really doing this stuff? Well, I'm pale as shit, so I wouldn't want any of that showing. I probably would want to camo my face. I could get away with wrapping it if it was cold. I'm not wearing any eye pro, which depending on what we really think is happening, I could be. Probably not a bad idea, unless I think it's going to fog really bad or something like that. As you can see, I have 8 mags accessible, have my smoke, med kit, backup med kit, water, radio, and comms. Not everybody in a line unit is going to have radio and comms, and that's okay. Oftentimes you have a couple guys with radios, and everyone else just does what they're supposed to be doing, and if they need to relay or receive information, it happens at that point. I have this radio on here just because I teach with this rig, and I can talk to the other instructors and stuff like that. Now, obviously the pack filled up with all my stuff. If I need something out of this pack, I'm going to have to take it off. So the things I immediately need, like I need to drink water every so often, I'm going to have up front with the rest of it in there. Otherwise, the fighting load, everything I need for fighting is up here, signaling even, comms and all that. I'm not going to do a separate video where I put all this stuff on, just because all that stuff's very self-explanatory, and I'm going to be sounding like Darth Vader anyway. So, without further ado, let's see what it all looks like when we compare it.